Volk? W-tro? That's all my Croatian, sorry. Hello, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for coming. I know it has been a night of excess and parties and all that, so really appreciate it. Together we are going to explore the inner works of creativity and inspiration. So, I'm Raul Rubio. I'm founder, creative director of Tequila Works. I have been making games for 18 years, the last 9 in a boutique studio located in Madrid, sunny city, like Dubrovnik. And well, our goal was creating with gusto. That means that we apply our passion, talent, and craftsmanship to the service of, well, creating emotional experiences. So, here's the thing. Culture, personal roots, and life experiences are critical to define the talents of the individuals and the teams that build these, well, games that you all enjoy. But it's also a vehicle that helps us inform moving and emotional experiences that can connect with global audiences. If you check the games that we have been making in Tequila Works, well, they all have very different styles. They are not defined by genre. They all look very different. But for us, they are very much the same, in the sense that, well, they all reflect our culture in games, or culture in narrative storytelling, or culture in entertainment. But also, our past, at what inspired us in the first place. We want to create unique universes. We want to create something that can really move you. And here's the thing. I don't know if you're familiar with padron peppers, but basically they are like jalapenos, sneakier and randomized, in the sense that they all look the same, but 1 out of 10 is fucking hot. So. And, well, in Spain, it's a social thing and mostly an excuse to order more beer. But, like padron peppers, all ideas look the same. On paper, all ideas are good. Only when you try it, you know which one is the spicy, right? And how inspiration and creativity, I mean, all these ideas, where they come from. Well, Tim Schafer was here yesterday. We still can feel the energy. He was standing here. And for Tim, well, creativity is a golden goose that lives in your head, and you feed the goose. Depending on, well, what you feed, when it comes from the other side, you either get a golden egg or crap, right? So, well, being Tequila Works, we have a more alcoholic explanation. And is, for us, basically, we all have an alembic in our heads. Well, right now, your liver is doing most of the work, but everything that defines us, and this is not just for creativity, this is for all aspects in life. All you do, all you see, all you hear, all you feel, all that defines you, basically, are mementos and events that define your personality, because basically, over a steady and lengthy and a slow natural process that may take years or decades, well, we analyze this meaningless data that is pretty amorphous, and after a long time, we can rationalize it. We can find the meaning for it. And, well, these little drops, these feelings, these emotions, that at the beginning, maybe they lack any meaning at all, are so powerful because after years in the alembic, they become something that is polished, and you can finally notice the tiny details. The good news is this is a natural process that we all have. I mean, you don't have to do anything. Obviously, this is a process that can be improved and enhanced with, I don't know, meditation, self-discipline, sensory isolation, altered states of conscience, or whatever, right? But everything that you do, directly or indirectly, solo or multiplayer with others, because this is a collective effort, where all the awesome and the not so awesome things, basically, all these are the ingredients that are going to define your creativity in your, well, coming years. That's how it's so important. You remember this Pixar movie? It was not about, well, the feelings. It was more about the crappy middle management that lost all your important memories. And it was, well, you only get the catchy song that is super annoying. But in the end, you cannot pretend that creativity is just fueled with happy moments. You cannot be happy all the time. You look at me, for example, I'm the classic example of the writer syndrome, in the sense that I can get the best of myself when I reach the bottom of the worst of me. I'm not saying that I'm like Hemingway, but yeah, heavy drinking, sleep deprivation, super fear of being an unprepared dad, all things are basically what makes me more creative. I'm not saying that you should be a terrible dad. I mean, be good fathers, please. Why is this? I mean, games are a global industry, right? I mean, we are trying to connect with people, so that's why we end up with bold space marines, because, well, that's something that everyone can understand, right? Well, games grew up, like any medium, insecure, and we were looking for role models. And obviously, yeah, one of the most relatable role models was Hollywood, right? And in Hollywood, the vision of the world that has become the standard relies heavily on cliches and stereotypes. And yeah, well, that's great. It's about saving the world and the kingdom and the princess and whatever. In games, we basically did the same. Traditionally, it was a competitive medium. Traditionally, well, we wanted you to feel special. I think you are familiar with It's a Small World. It's a 1966 ride in Walt Disney. And picture yourself. You are at war, Cold War, and Wheat Enterprises and the Walt Disney Imagineers are put in a room. Walt Disney comes in and say, look, we want to transmit a theme of world peace and unity, and you have 3 minutes to explain it. How you do it? Well, in the case of It's a Small World, it relies on stereotypes. And these stereotypes are convenient because sometimes you don't have time to explain anything. You just need to jump into the action, right? So picture yourselves the way Walt Disney in 1966 explained that we are all very much the same was by highlighting our differences. You take 300 animatronic children, you dress up with well, regional clothes, and they start singing a very catchy song that is the most performed song ever. Well, sounds terrible, right? But again, concepts like geography or the geopolitical sensibilities of the 60s are totally useless when you are trying to impress a target audience of, well, illiterate, highly ignorant, and highly impressible children, right? So that's why we tend to use stereotypes, because they are very, very convenient. They are fast. I mean, they are just into the action. But the problem is that they are monolithic. They are static. They get tired pretty soon. We tend to think that AAA games rely heavily on stereotypes because they are risk-averse, and, well, indies are like the sanctuary for inspiration, creativity, and cultural sensibilities, right? That's not entirely true. I mean, you can find examples of AAA games that have a very cultural background, and you can find indies that are basically a beautiful envelope with very, very conservative gameplay mechanics. So many studios, like Tequila Wars, are trying to go beyond those stereotypes, to build worlds that can really feel unique while not alienating you. If you look at how the world sees Spain, even if some of these stereotypes maybe even feel good, and they are quite embarrassing, to be honest, well, they stay on the surface. I mean, they are frivolous in the sense that, yeah, everyone can understand the lazy guy or the sexy dancer or, well, the pain of Spain, haha. But the thing is, well, anyone can do that. I mean, that's without merit. It's lazy. For example, Señorita, I'm not so macho camacho, bullfighter by day, dancer and lover by night, to serve God and yourself. I mean, anyone can do that. And that's how we ended with this, right? Bullfighters everywhere. Well, because Spain, I mean, if you use the stereotypes as your source for inspiration, well, you end up with just a pool for references and pretty settings and little more. If you look at this, I mean, there's still lots of room for improvement to, well, define what a hero should be in a video game. By contrast, if you look at games made in Spain, not set in Spain, you may notice a shocking lack of bullfighters. There have been only 3 games in 30 years about bullfighting. One of them was canceled. So there you go. Well, because Spain, for us, is not just this, well, mirror where you can look for something good. For us, it's the root that inspires us, with emotions and feelings that we extracted with the alembic based on our personal experiences, right? I mean, that was unique for us. And that's true for everyone. For example, a closer example. Croatia appears in lots of games, endless World War II games, real-time simulators like Command & Conquer, Total War, Colin McRae, well, even Wolfenstein, but it's a wasted opportunity. I mean, it's just an excuse for a setting. It's just a location. And, well, that's quite dramatic, because together with Spain, Croatia is the European with the most UNESCO's world's culture masterpieces with them. So you look at Croatian games, so I don't know, Embryo, or Hot Summer Vacations, Doodle Jump, I hate riding backwards, Scan, of course, Your Son. Well, they all have many different influences, right? And they are lacking, again, I'm the dumb foreigner, so they are lacking neckties and World of Thrones. I mean, how is that possible? Well, that's the thing. You don't need to rely on the surface. Culture is not about the differences. In fact, culture is not about how others see you or how you see others. It's about connecting the dots. It's about how you define yourself, what we all share in common. How can you create a language that is universal and anyone can understand, even when no words are present? If you look at Miyazaki, for example, it's not about how a mailbox looks in Japan or how many tickets you need to ride the train. It's about universal feelings, about emotions. We are all human in this room, I hope. So that means that we can all understand the feelings of loss or respect the elders or the love for nature. You don't need to explain that. It's something that you can really understand because we all share the same feelings. A real example. How many of you are familiar with Papo and Yo? God bless you. Papo and Yo is a not so old game by Vander Caballero. And it's a game about this schoolboy and his friend, which is a giant monster addicted to poisonous frogs. Obviously, yeah, it's a very quite colorful and beautiful game, but yes, in fact, was the true story of Vander's childhood with an alcoholic father, right? When you look at the inspirations, he grew up in Bogota, in Colombia. And of course, you can feel the references, and you can feel, well, that it looks like his hometown. But more importantly, Vander, through the alembic, managed to transform the precarious into something magical, into something that felt oniric and dreamlike, where the favelas are now like little toy boxes piled together, and all the streets are blessed with the masterpieces by renowned Latin American street artists. Sometimes your influences come directly from where you are from. I don't know if you're familiar with this little family business based in Kyoto. It's a toy company. And well, it's not a secret that, for example, the Hoyo clan crest helped define the Triforce. And, well, the Fushimi Nari Taisa with the story, the Kitsune statues, and, well, even the Nari Fox's baseball team helped shape Star Fox, right? Well, that was something that was close. It was something that felt really, really close. But sometimes these influences are not based on when you were from. So if you look at, for example, Tinico, the Ainu culture is obviously present in all Fumito Ueda's works, right? The Ainu are this culture in Hokkaido, in northern Japan. But more importantly, the surrealist architecture of Giorgio Chirico is equally important. Not only that, locations like this is the Quinta da Regaleira in Portugal are not just a setting. I mean, they are actually a vehicle to transmit emotions. Emotions like the feeling of solitude, the feeling of trespassing, the feeling that something happened here, who built this, and what is going on. I shouldn't be here, but I'm the hero, so I'm going to kill this giant thing, and oh fuck. And sometimes you just blend the most obvious stereotypes like noir and Dia de Muertos. You blend it, presto, timeless masterpiece, Green Fandango. So let's use myself as an example. You may figure out by now that I'm Spanish, but maybe you are not so familiar with my home place in northern Spain, in Navarre. You have ever read Ernest Hemingway, The Sun Also Rises is set in my hometown, and maybe you are familiar with San Fermines, the running of the bulls, and Fiesta. So that's the vision that most of the world has about us, except the Australians, because they tend to jump off monuments. But that's a different story. For me, it's a totally different tale. For me, my hometown, well, means bridges and endless aqueducts. Castles and literally halls where you can go and journey to the center of the earth, where iron factories have been retaken by nature, and now, well, this symbol of war and destruction is a river that flows free. And mysteries in the middle of nowhere by looking at caves, where the witches celebrated their aquelarres or witch reunions. We still celebrate the summer solstice. No sacrifices, basically just beer and eating a lot. But you get the idea, okay? You can even say that, well, considering we have jungles in the north and deserts to the south, I grew up in Hyrule. But the thing is, that was a great source of inspiration, because that meant that the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary. Again, through the process of the alembic, all these blurry memories that lack any sense or any meaning, years later, they become special, they become nostalgic, they become magical, right? And again, your culture is defined by your folklore and your mythology, your gastronomy, and even your relationship with your neighbors. So it's something that you don't want to impose. I mean, culture should be something that inspire you, inspire others, but it needs to be very subtle. It needs to be like the secret ingredient in your pie. Again, if you look at Spain, well, maybe the last 350 years have not been our best, but if you look at the Hollywood themes about winning, saving the universe, winning the contest, getting the girl, well, Spain is more about losing with style. So that means that, well, we are not just longing for the glory of the long past days. Actually, we are trying to use that to extract the feeling and emotion of, well, this loss, but more importantly, the joy and the wonder of the discovery that is yet to come, right? Let's use Rhyme as an example. This is one game that we released last year. I don't know if you have played it or not, but thank you. The thing is, Rhyme is an evocative experience, okay? It's inspired in the Mediterranean, but it's not supposed to be a classic adventure with your superhero or whatever. It's more like, well, you are a little kid stranded on an island in the middle of the Mediterranean, and the important thing for us was, well, setting up this structure where with no dialogue, no narrator, no explanation, no nothing, we literally will let you fill the gaps with whatever is lying in your heart, right? How we do it? Well, again, You are this fragile, helpless little kid, but that's not supposed to be something that is blocking your progress. In fact, that's the catalyst that allows you to go beyond your own boundaries, that allows you, as an adult, to, in a matter of minutes, say, oh, I have no meaning. You know what? I'm just having fun. And that's how you get into the story, right? Well, the most obvious influence, as I said, was the Mediterranean. And yes, you can see the Mediterranean as a beautiful setting, or, I don't know, marble quarries that are great shapes and whatever. But again, for us, it was more about how we felt when we were children. We grew up at the shores of the Mediterranean. So for us, it was more about the light, how this light can feel everything, how, well, using Sorolla, the Master of Light, or Studio Ghibli, and yes, this is the Adriatic, it's not the Mediterranean, but don't tell anyone, is how we can transmit these emotions just with colors, just with the mood that we can set up with the temperature, for example, where if we want you to feel happiness, or sadness, or jealousy, or anger, is more about how warm or cold it is, instead of, well, relying on literal colors, because colors can mean something very different in different countries. Again, this is a clear example on how the Alembic works. This is, well, I hope it's not a spoiler, but this is stage 3, bargaining. And the thing is, we wanted to transmit this sense of isolation, of civilization retaken by nature, this sense of trespassing, that you shouldn't be here, right, with all the statues and all that. So I described this to the concept artist, Abel, who did it. And when we actually modeled everything in the game, just by chance, I noticed that this was the Arms factory that I visited when I was a child. And it was exactly the same concept, well, but the river. And it was there, just waiting. You may ask, okay, so what's the result? How can I apply this culture to my game and, yeah, create a blockbuster? Well, it's not that simple, but I can give you the recipe that we personally use at Tequila Work. That is basically hard work, inspiration, hard work, discipline, and yes, hard work, 3 parts of hard work. Well, for us, it's just 2 questions that we always try to answer, which is, where's the crazy and where's the beautiful? Because, yeah, something can be pretty but hollow, and something can be crazy but meaningless. So we try to create meaningful experiences that, well, actually make you feel a better person, right? So that's why we have this structure where culture is not just an individual effort. Culture is not about corporate culture. I mean, what defines you as a team is not just how you work or how you organize yourselves or which tools you use. I mean, that's pretty important. But it's also how you soul into the ideas, how you seed these into their souls. Because, well, we have this, I mean, games are a team effort. So we have all these disciplines, and we have code, technology, design, art, animation, music. They all feel very important, except animation and music, because they're always underrated, and they don't deserve it. But the thing is, you have these people. I mean, we're like 60 people in Tequila Wars. We are 8 nationalities. We have many different backgrounds and beliefs and sexual orientations and whatever. And the thing is, this diversity is key, because what we need is one vision can have many interpretations, and that's great, because when we are facing a problem, we want to know which one is the best solution. We need different ways of thinking. We need different points of view. So when you are transmitting this to the team, it's not just about them to understand why we do things. That's critical, because obviously there will be tough moments, and you won't be able to sleep at night because you don't know how you are going to pay your team the next month and whatever. But it's also a way to inspire them, how you feed them the creativity that you need them to understand, to create different versions of what you had in your head. Well, we have this process that we call tequila shots. Tequila shots may involve or may not involve actual tequila shots, but 9 years ago, when we founded the studio, we visited Double Fine in San Francisco. And they had just created this process at Nation for Night, which we literally repeat off. And we do it twice a year to inspire people and as a sanity check. So the way it works is people can propose their own personal ideas, but more importantly, we all start with the same definition, and then very small teams of around 8, 12 people are totally independent, like a straight team, to develop their own solutions, right? And the beauty is that sometimes we reach similar conclusions, and sometimes, well, someone blows us our mind because, well, they are far smarter than us and far crazier. Sometimes the best way to inspire some people and to understand your sensibility is to share the same experiences, right? That's why, like many studios, we organize field trips. Again, living in Spain, this is easy because, yeah, there's inspiration everywhere. But more importantly, these people are the closer thing you have to a family. As sad as that may sound, you spend a lot of time with them. So it's important to know them for real, not what their perks or what their weaknesses are, literally how they feel, what are their struggles, I mean, what they feel that is important for their lives. I mean, what's their plan, right? So spending time with them is critical. Why? Because, well, again, this culture and this root is not just a topping that you can add later, like chocolate or cinnamon or jalapenos. It's literally something that you need to put in the DAG of creativity, right? And when it grows, and when you are baking your pie, it will become a very, very thick and delicious crust that is going to be there, and it's going to be solid because it was there from the beginning, from the inception. It's part of your soul. I mean, it's not something that you force it. That's why, either good or bad, you need to accept the things that are coming to you. I mean, be aware of what's surrounding you, and more importantly, look inside you to discover what you have, because the worst thing that you can do is trying to force you. I mean, don't try to explain it, or you will lose all the fun. Don't try to force it, because if you don't understand what made it special in the first place, well, yeah, it's not going to be so delicious anymore. What you want to do here is to plant the seed, to make it grow strong, to make it grow healthy, and to make it grow unique. And again, it's not something that you are going to do alone. It's something that you are going to do with others, so grow together, right? And that's it. Thank you. Well, we have some time for questions. Please don't let me here standing still for 20 minutes, because otherwise I will start asking you questions. So don't run away. Okay. Well, if you don't have questions, you can, I don't know, say anything like comments, love letters, death threats. I'm used to that. No? Okay. That's not a question, but thank you. Do you have a microphone? Okay. The guy on the first row. Thank you.
Is that on? That's on. Hi, I played Rhyme Through, and parts of it were ambiguous. Now, if you're investing so much of your emotion and into the game, how important is it for you that people actually get the same feeling that you tried to get across?
It's not important at all, because again, it's something personal. It's something that, well, it needs to feel important for you, because actually that was the concept that allowed you to go beyond. But it's not something that you want to explain. It's not something that you want to feed into others. I mean, it's just the secret ingredient that made you special and unique. But again, when you show the trick, it loses all the fun. So no, it's not important at all. If it is important for you, great. The questions? There.
Hello, just a short question. Obviously, games take a while to create. It's a long process to get it started, and it's a long process to get it completed. Do you ever struggle with maintaining the original emotion regarding the idea? Because obviously, trying to force it, like you say, gets a different result. Do you ever have those types of struggles?
Constantly, and again, it's not something that you need to fight. It's something that you need to accept because all ideas evolve. I mean, all concepts evolve. You cannot allow yourself to fall in love with your own ideas or concepts. So sometimes, yeah, it comes and goes, and maybe it was not the pattern pepper you were looking for. So in this case, well, for example, Rhyme evolved a lot during development. We always had this idea of the island, the tower, the kid, the sense of adventure and innocence. That was basically the main thing, innocence. But how we reached it, well, yeah, it was a long journey. It was our own grief to accept. I don't know if I answered your question or not. Did I? No? Yes? There. 5th row, 6.
Hello, hi. So you mentioned you have a team of lots of different backgrounds, and that's really important to have the variety of experience to draw on, inspiration. And but ultimately, the whole team has to come around one vision, because there is one game that does, what the game does, and people might bring different things to it or see it in a different way and have disagreements, and because they're passionate about it, they have passionate disagreements, and not everyone can have their way. So I'm sure you have these situations. So how do you deal with those?
Many, many times. And I'm glad you asked this question because, yeah, it's something that many creative teams face sooner or later, always. Well, here's the thing. Once we put our ideas on the table, they are not your ideas anymore. You are not there to satisfy your own ego. You are there at the service of the vision. And that vision, what is said, and is not designed by committee, but it's something that we all agree. Well, we can all play with everyone's ideas, we can all deconstruct everyone's ideas, and we can destroy everyone's ideas. At the beginning of the presentation, you could see that I was a creative director. That doesn't mean shit in Tequila. They throw my ideas, and of course, when they are bad. So it's something that, again, when you have this confidence, feels easier. Sometimes, yeah, it can be, well, can create some frictions. That's why, for example, it took us a while, but we have this vision keeper figure that basically he has no decision-making power, but he's the one that is basically described that is keeping record of all the decisions that we all agreed. So when someone is going against the vision, no matter who, that's when that person can be the judge in the discussion. There's no easy answer to that question because it depends on the project. Obviously, some projects have some wonders. In the case of Rhyme, well, it took a leap of faith to accept this. I mean, I remember that the first 2 years and a half, some programmers refused to do this game because they said that it was not a game at all. But then their argument was that Journey was not a game, and I remember my answer was, I don't care if it's a game, it's meaningful, and that's it. So we are doing a Rhyme, and end of discussion. Sometimes, again, we tend to believe that making games is like dancing a tango. But in this tango, well, there are 3 dancers. You have technology, you have design, and you have art. And all of them, they believe that they are the most important thing, right? So managing to find the balance between them, and again, not having prima donnas who have huge egos, but people who can work with others as a team, as a football team, hopefully, that's the key. So in the end of the day, well, yeah, we can have all discussions, but we set up all the discussions with drinking contests. Whoever wins gets the idea. There was another question back there.
Hi. My question is, when you're creating and designing a game where you say that emotion and experience is the key, the main focus, would you say that, or how do you, not how you start, but the scene and the environment and the experience and the feeling of the whole game is one thing, and the other part is the gameplay and the game mechanic. Would you say this is something in designing such a game which goes hand in hand, or one thing is more important than the other?
Again, if you ask a designer, they will tell you that, of course, the gameplay mechanics and the rules that define a game are the most important thing ever, and all the rest is just cosmetics. Thankfully, we're not like that. So the thing is, art is not just beautiful backgrounds. I mean, in Rhyme, for example, the use of art is not just to create the landscapes. It's, in fact, to inform you with the visual language where to go without relying on icons or HUD. We have no HUD. Second, it was a powerful vehicle for emotions and feelings. But more importantly, yeah, for a designer, maybe a puzzle is just, okay, we have this room, there's a box in the middle, do something. Oh yeah, it's supposed to be a Byzantine temple. So can you make it beautiful, but it needs to be a square and there's a box in the middle. Okay, and the artist can tell you, yeah, okay, it's going to be a very beautiful box and it's going to be a very beautiful square room, but may I add, I don't know, can I change the box into a fountain, or maybe it's not a square and I can create some kind of toroid thing with, I don't know, golems and gargoyles? Well, again, it's a tango. So sometimes the designer can say, no, it needs to be a box because, I don't know, I need to push it. But sometimes it's like, you know, this puzzle is about opening the door, but can we use your own shadow as the key to open the door? You know, you are supposed to be a child, so we need to find this key, but maybe if you are this kid, you believe, using this, I don't know, child logic, that the statue over there, I can grab it, and now, hey, it's the shape of the statue, of the key I needed, things like that. So these conversations are very healthy. And again, it's not that one is more important than the other, it's that they need to work together. It's not an assembly line, it's like narrative in games. I mean, if you want to create a very meaningful, interactive narrative, it's not something that you need to, that you add at the end or at the beginning. It's something that develops and is part of the design process. So, well, I have a very funny story about, well, the writer of Rhyme in a previous project, not in Tequila Works. They hired him to write the story for a game. First day at the studio, they tell him, oh, you need to write the dialogues, but the game is done, we're shipping in 3 months, the cut scenes are done, so please, can you lip sync all the dialogues that you are going to create in these 2 weeks so they match the scenes? I was like, okay, can I change anything? Can I add something to the story? It's like, no, there's no story. I mean, just create some excuse for this. That's the porn approach to narrative, in the sense that you have a story and action, but never together. Well, you need to work with your team members to avoid that. Again, design is not more important than art, and art is not more important than design. There, the handsome, shadowy shape.
Hello, just one more question. You're obviously a creative person, and I presume you have much difficulty trying to refrain from straying in all directions. How do you approach the problem of working on a specific idea or emotion and suddenly getting the instinct to, or maybe another idea, to focus somewhere else? Do you utilize it, give in to the new emotion and stray off? Or do you try to postpone it and stay with the current idea and possibly lose the the inspiration?
The answer is always heavy drinking to suppress your feelings. But no, okay, in all seriousness. Obviously, there needs to be a powerful message at the inception. And Inception is not just this movie where Leonardo DiCaprio gets into your dreams and sees an idea and whatever. It's literal that you need to have a very clear idea on what you are going to do. I mean, not literally in terms of how the experience is going to be, or how the gameplay mechanics are going to work, or what your pillars are. I mean, that's the concept stage. At the inception, you don't have anything. I mean, it's just a gut feeling, right? So, of course, yeah, you can rely on themes, and those themes probably are coming from your own emotions. To give you an example, well, some moments in Rhyme are based on childhood memories, or close to death experiences. The depression stage is based on when I fathered my kid and I couldn't sleep for 2 years. And the thing is, I was so depressed that I was unable to see whoever was trying to help me. For me, the world was invisible because I was too focused on me and my suffering, and I felt miserable. But at the same time, I felt the joy of having this little new life, right? Which is terrifying. You need to distill, of course, the simpler the better. And I don't know if it can be something like it's a small world peace, unity. Okay, that's a great idea, but you need the concept. How you develop this concept on this idea. Your idea is not, I'm going to make a side-scroller platform that is like Ghosts and Goblins, but in space. That's not an idea. That's literally a concept proposal, right? So before that, yes, there needs to be a very healthy self-criticism process, so you really know what you want to do, and maybe in the process you discover that you are not what you thought you were. Sorry, it's quite ambiguous, I know. Second row.
Hi.
Cool t-shirt.
Excuse me?
Cool t-shirt, yeah, of course. Who doesn't love Nintendo 64?
Oh, thank you. I have, well, actually, I'll slight cheat. I have actually 3 questions, but they're related, so I hope you can answer them.
We have time, so yeah.
So let's say you start building a game and you finish building a level that's based on, let's say, some beach in Dubrovnik. My question is, I assume you're not going to just copy-paste the exact looks of that beach into your game. You're going to change some details on that beach. And then I have a question, how much do you change? What influences those changes? Is it something that's story-based, that you can add a detail like, I don't know, thousands of years ago, somebody walked by and tore that wall apart, or something like that? And the third question is, how many changes can you actually make before it stops looking like that beach in Dubrovnik, before people can't recognize it anymore?
Well, your main influence is not just games or movies or books. I mean, it's life itself. And believe it or not, well, you are the only yourself that there exists in this universe. I mean, you are unique. So your point of view is unique. And that means that, well, obviously, just by going to Dubrovnik and, well, walking on the walls and everything, that's not going to change my perspective immediately. In fact, that would be a stereotype. I mean, me pretending to make a game based on the Byzantine Empire, for example, that would be a very bad idea. I'm not familiar enough. I don't understand why it's special. I can understand why it looks different. I can understand why it's exotic to me. But only you can understand why that's relevant for you. That's the key, right? So it's a steady process, and of course, any creative person has ideas all the time. That's why you write down everything. That's why you keep a notebook next to your bed when you wake up in the middle of the night. That's why you email yourself. That happens a lot. And it's not something that it needs to be like, oh, great idea, I'm going to use it. Sometimes, well, it's like dating. Maybe you are a wonderful person, but maybe the person you want to date is not the right match for you now, right? So it's not, again, based on my brief experience here, I cannot pretend to add Dubrovnik in our next game because that would be first disrespectful and would be ignorant, right? But maybe in the future, I don't know if I return here, or maybe you that live here, you will be able to add something, a little detail maybe, that is going to make your game to stand out in the sense that, well, right now is, I don't know, maybe for me the most amazing thing is how clean the streets are. I mean, when I was a kid, I really believed that everyone had a 1,000 years old dungeon downstairs. Because in my town, well, it's so old that we all have those. For real, I mean, I'm not kidding. So yeah, when I went out, I discovered that people live in buildings and they don't have dungeons, right? But the streets are super dirty. Here, everything is clean. So I don't know if it's because of the tourism or because you really love your city and probably there's someone polishing the walls at night or whatever, but I don't know. That's ignorant of me, of course, because I'm just a tourist. So answering your question, maybe one day is something that arises, but you shouldn't look for it. I mean, it's part of yourself. So when you are designing a game, the mechanics that you choose, when you are a musician, the beats that you are selecting, unless you are Hans Zimmer, and when you are a programmer, if you use spaces or not, that's part of what defines you, right? And you don't think about it, you just do it. So that's how it works. You don't need to think about it, you just do it. First row. It's not working, but I can hear you. Don't worry, shout.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
good. So I was just starting to think, because I play a lot of games, and I played a lot of games over time, and games that I've long since abandoned. So I was like, just wondering that, do you ever use memories of like previous games, sort of games of your childhood, and channel those experiences and those sort of the visual look and feel of how it was to play that game into the games that you make now?
Yeah, for years, well, the obvious answer would be Another World. That's the game for me, okay? When I was a kid, I still remember when the alien grabs you and then you hit him in the nuts and he shouts, Rachul! And then you kill him. For me, when I was a kid, that was, whoa, this is perfect. One day I will know Erichahi because, well, it was easy to remember the credits when you are just one guy and the musician. One day I will meet Erichahi because I'm going to make games. I mean, that was the game where I decided to start considering the possibility of actually making games because it was the first game where I thought how they do it. I mean, how the rotoscopy works, why it looks so beautiful. And then years later at GDC, I met Eri Shahi, and well, I mean, he's a great guy, but I asked him, how you had all this plan in your head? I said, I didn't. So it was literally an exquisite corpse in the sense that he made the game a scene by scene. He had no idea what was going to happen next. So it really felt like this getting into the unknown, this journey of discovery, because literally the avatar and you, the player, and the creator of the game were discovering what was next because he had no fucking idea. So yeah, that's the memory for me and the game. What's for you?
I think for me, like what was really transformative was playing the first Shogun Total War, like playing a campaign and actually losing a battle and noticing that I cared about the virtual characters that I was losing and actually crying because they died. And sort of I realized that games can make virtual characters meaningful and losing them can actually be a really strong emotion.
So it felt special, and it left your mark, and you can thank that the middle manager in your head didn't replace it with a crappy memory. So congratulations. Yeah, Total War. Was the Croatian campaign or with the Byzantine Empire? Or?
This was just in Shogun Total War, so that was like Japan and sort of samurais and.
Cool. No? Yes.
So for the Sexy Brutale, that was a collaboration with another studio who were developing the game.
Yep.
How did you decide that that was a game that you wanted to work on and publish? And how much, if any, sort of creative input did Tequila Works have?
You're going to laugh, but well, the Griffiths brothers, Charles and James, and then Tom Lanslade, they are Cavalier Game Studios. They are based in Guildford, and they had the idea for the Sexy Brutale, okay? And they had this super ugly prototype. I mean, it's not. I'm not being disrespectful. It was really, really ugly. Nobody would love it, not even its mother. But it was a great idea. So, well, since I knew Charles, we started collaborating, and originally I was going to make the pitch for the game. I'm very good at pitching. As you can see, well, all the talk was improvised. So the thing is, well, we slowly said, you know what, we can make more, and we have experience self-publishing, so maybe we can help you with, for example, visual language and visual definition. And Charles and James, they had been visiting all the English countryside, visiting villas and mansions and the country houses, right? And they had this, well, huge portfolio of references. But they said, yeah, but I need to understand, I mean, I need to think like a British. And being a Spaniard, that's quite difficult for us. I mean, we are genetically unable to do that, right? So he said, don't worry, you are in Westminster? I said, yes. Okay, go into the House of the Commons, stay there for a few hours, okay? And, well, basically you go there, any crust of mustard in a curtain, any scratch in the leather is telling you a story, right? Actually, the full building is filled with little details and many, many stories that if you are, well, ingenious enough, you can discover by asking the staff, right? So that's when we said, okay, being British means that basically you had all this glorious past and you are totally oblivious of how decadent and meaningless your existence is now, which Charles and James love it. And sorry if there's any British guy or lad in the room, but basically that's how we could adapt, because we had to literally think how this place would be, how this world was going to be, not just in terms of looks, but why it was made the way it was. I mean, this is supposed to be the casino mansion by an extravagant lord that had many, well, was lucky, he was a gambler, had better days, and now is full of decadence. It's full of over-the-top, totally, well, tasteless decorations. It's full of history. And that was important for us. That's why it was not just a matter of creating different architectonical styles for different parts of the house. It needed to feel that you were visiting this character, and the house was a character too. Also, it was very useful because, as you know, the Sexy Brutale takes place in real time. That's 9 minutes each day. And that means that, well, you need to know, for example, wherever you hear the gunshot, you know that that's sixpence dying. But more importantly, you know it's coming from the church. And the chapel is not just a random level. It was something that is in the house, and you need to know how to reach it. So, well, when you are rich enough with the details and you can make the people to find their way because they really paid attention, that's a totally different thing. That's the difference between having to rely on a map or a navigator with an arrow, or just, well, oh yeah, I'm going to the end of the corridor, turn left, down the stairs, into the casino area, go past the slot machines, and there it is. Did I answer your question? Yeah, cool. As you can see, I feel very insecure because I cannot see you.
I'm afraid that's it for time, so...
Oh, fuck. Okay, time's up. You have time for one more. Okay. No? Okay, then you can clap. Yeah. Thank you.